over the years, Nate and company, all the, wet meadow partners have been, doing a lot of wet meadow work, primarily working in kind of low gradient wet meadows, implementing, I think, Nate, you mentioned you started out with some of these rock gabions and things like that. And over time, some of these restoration practices have evolved. Zeolite came to the basin and then really got a really handle on the right tool for the job. And more recently, a lot of the partners in the Gunnison Basin and outside in the subpopulations have been looking to implement more low-tech process-based restoration. Just another tool in the toolbox. I know Forest Service has been active. Andrew with BLM have been active in implementing this kind of thing. So I'm just kind of going to go over the techniques. Basically we're using wood and low-tech structures to mimic functions that promote specific processes for restoration. And a lot of this is related to streams, perennial streams. It's not exclusive to that. But if someone told me 10 years ago, you're going to spend money for sage grouse on stream restoration, I probably would have told them they were crazy. But it's a thing. So this is any old forgotten stream. There's a lot of this on the landscape. Gunnison Basin is in surprisingly good shape. You don't see a whole lot of this, but there's quite a bit of this in the subpopulation. So this is the problem. How can we? What tools are available to grade these streams to get them, back, reconnect floodplains, get the water back on the landscape? Here's kind of a typical situation: the same stream from above. It's more or less, we kind of refer to this as a gully. There's no access to the floodplain. No green groceries. This is kind of the extent of the floodplain. It's confined in this incised channel. And what we want to do is we want to figure out how to get the water up out of this, when we have the flows, and try and spread it across this floodplain. So more green groceries for sage grouse. And maybe if we're lucky, we can get to this point. We have, obviously, sage grouse is not an amphibious species, but we have a lot of good green stuff on the fringes, and that's what we hope to grow with this kind of work. And so what I previously shown there is an anastomosing stage 0 channel, and this was kind of the example before, incise or incising, and this is kind of a truncated version of a stream evolution model. But yeah, we basically want to try and move it along back to stage 0. And I'm going to introduce some tools to do that, as well as, the option of using beaver if it makes sense. And it doesn't make sense in every situation. This is kind of an aerial picture of the kind of same scenario. Basically, you're adding dams, you're adding structure, you're trying to widen the channel, you're trying to get aggregation of sediment that's moving downstream. You're trying to capture that sediment to grade that channel. The only thing funky about this is the trees usually come before the beaver, and for some reason they got the trees just show up when the beaver show up. I don't know why that is. So here's some of the structures that we use to do this kind of work. Everyone kind of refers to everything as a BDA, but PALs are kind of a different animal. They don't get as much love. But so there's, postless BDAs, post-assisted BDAs, and post-line wicker weaves. I'll get to the difference in all those in a moment. And then you have your different kind of post-assisted log structures. And to do this, the post-driven structures, it's basically, human-powered operation, similar to the Z-dike work. Lots of labor involved, labor-intensive. We use this hydraulic post driver to pound those posts vertically, shovels and buckets, and loppers and everything else to try and gather the materials needed. This particular structure was a true beaver dam analog. This was actually done for Colorado River cutthroat trout. there are multi-species benefits to these, and similar to what Nate mentioned with salamanders and chorus frogs. This is kind of the final product. We were lucky with this one because the beaver actually, not in this photo, but later on, came in and moved in on this. And that's ultimately what you want to have happen is provide the refuge so that they have hiding cover. They've got some deeper pools they can hide in, and then they move out onto the banks and bring that material in and build on what you've kind of set up for. This is more of an ephemeral situation, kind of a spring-fed, monsoonal driven drainage. It's actually this is the little Dolores River. I don't know why it's called a river, but this is Pinyon Mesa. We did this is a true beaver dam analog, and the ideal with this project is we're trying to capture in pond spring flow. We're trying to get some obviously floodplain reconnect if we can degrade the system. What ended up happening is we had a major monsoon and a lot of material moved into this after the fact. This was a previous position I held in Idaho. We worked on this. This was actually, this was a real narrow channel, but it had a wide floodplain, and the ideal being that we would, build a beaver dam analog across that channel. And one thing about this, you notice how big it is. And to do something like that with the rock would, rock is great, but if you have water, you can keep wood wet. It's not going to deteriorate. You're able to span a very large channel with wood to kind of create some of the same effects. There was a series of these done. This was actually done. This is in the Owyhee landscape in southwestern Idaho. It was done to benefit greater sage grouse as well as Columbia spotted frog. This is a project I'm working on with Dan Newbaum, Sean Connor and company. Great picture, thanks, Sean. And this is what would have been historically a wet meadow. Something captured that flow, created a head cut in this valley. That head cut migrated upstream. You have very little wetland vegetation on the fringes. This is all converting to upland. Sage grouse is moving in. The ideal being that we're going to, by putting these structures in place, we're going to be able to spread that water laterally across that meadow, hopefully grade the system over time. I'm done? Oh, geez, oh, Pete. All right. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So I'll just go over PALs real quick. You got to widen the channel. So this is a PAL, bank attached PAL that's forcing flow against that bank for two reasons. You want to widen the channel to grade it. You also got to harvest that material to capture it downstream. A beaver luckily came in and saved us on that one. Mid-channel PAL, you're forming a bar mid-channel so you can push water onto the floodplain. This is North Beaver Creek. This is kind of that stage zero. I mean, this requires beaver. We have Dan Zadra, local beaver expert, who is great at trapping and translocating these things, and that's kind of the final stage to some of this. And that's that same meadow. And I just wanted to mention real quick that the Z-dike, Zuni Bowl, BDAs, they can all be used in tandem. It depends on what your goals are. And I just wanted to say thanks to the LTPBR folks out of Utah State for providing a lot of these slides. And this is all open source information online if anyone's after it. So.